Once upon a time, there was a little girl. Once her rich father married an evil stepmother. She settled in the house with her 2 daughters. Their faces were beautiful and white, but their hearts were evil and cruel. And then came a difficult time for the poor girl. From morning until late in the evening, they forced her to do dirty work, carry water, heat the stove, cook food, wash dishes, and do laundry. And besides, the half-sisters did their best to upset her as much as possible. They mocked her, poured peas and wheat into the ashes, and she had to sit and pick them out. In the evening, when she was tired of work, she had to go to bed not in bed, but on the floor, next to the stove. And because she was always in ash, dust, and dirty, the sisters called her Cinderella. But then it happened one day that the king started a feast, which was supposed to last for 3 whole days, and called all the beautiful girls of the country to the holiday so that his son could choose a bride for himself. When the 2 named sisters learned that they, too, could come to the feast, they instantly began to dress up and preen. Cinderella also wanted to go dancing, but her stepmother did not let her go, because she had no dress or shoes, and she was dirty. And then the evil stepmother poured a bowl of wheat into the ashes and said that if Cinderella collected it in 2 hours, then she could go with her sisters. Cinderella went out into the garden and cried. And then 2 white doves flew in, followed by a whole flock of different birds. They swooped down on the ash and began to peck, and so they chose all the grains in a bowl. In less than an hour, they finished their work, and everyone flew back. Cinderella brought a bowl to her stepmother, began to rejoice, thinking that she could go to the feast. But her stepmother would not let her in any way. She turned her back on Cinderella and hurried with her 2 daughters to the ball. When there was no one left at home, Cinderella sat down on the floor and cried with grief. And then 2 white doves flew in, followed by a whole flock of different birds, and they threw off their dress and shoes shiny and all in gold. She quickly put on this dress and came to the bride. They saw her stepsisters and stepmother and thought that it must be some strange princess, she was so beautiful in her golden dress. It never occurred to them that it was Cinderella. The prince came out to meet her, took her hand, and they began to dance. And he liked Cinderella so much that he did not want to dance with any other girl. She danced until the evening and wanted to return home, but the prince asked her to see her off. He wanted to know whose beautiful girl this is, and where she lives. But Cinderella ran away from him and climbed onto the dovecot. The prince ordered to destroy the dovecot, but there was no one in it. And nowhere near could he find his beautiful stranger. No one could have guessed that Cinderella was rescued by pigeons that took her home. The prince was upset and went to the palace with his head down. And suddenly he saw a shoe, lifted it up. It was so small and elegant and all of pure gold. The prince guessed that when Cinderella ran away from him, the shoe from her left foot remained on one of the steps. The prince was delighted and ordered to find the mistress of this shoe, and to whom it suits he will marry that one. The parents returned from the ball. They saw that Cinderella was asleep in her shirt on ash, and a dim light was on by the stove. Both sisters went to their rooms, hoping that tomorrow they would be lucky enough to put on the golden slipper. The next day, the prince came to their house, and said that everyone who wants to try on the shoe of his future wife should come out. 2 sisters came out, and the stepmother locked Cinderella in the house and did not let her out. The older sister tried it on a small shoe. The younger sister tried it on the shoe as great. The prince was about to leave, but Cinderella climbed out of the window and ran out to him. And she put on a shoe, and it just fit her. The prince looked into her eyes and recognized in her the very beautiful girl with whom he danced. He took Cinderella, put her on a horse and rode off to play a wedding with her. And he ordered the sisters and stepmother to be locked in their house, and never let them out of there. This is how they were punished for their malice and deceit.
A girl named Alice got tired of walking all day without doing anything. The heat made her sleepy. Suddenly she noticed the White Rabbit, who was in a hurry somewhere. It seemed strange to the girl that he was talking to himself, and kept looking at his watch. Burning with curiosity, Alice rushed after the rabbit, and without hesitation jumped after him into the hole. Inside was a deep well, the walls of which were lined with bookcases. Alice fell very slowly and managed to see everything properly. Once at the bottom of the well, the girl noticed a glass table with 3 legs. On it lay a small golden key and some kind of bottle. Alice tried to open the door with the key, but it was too small. Looking around, she saw a small door. To open it and find herself in a magnificent garden, Alice had to drink from a bottle from the table. After taking a couple of sips, she began to decrease in size. The girl shrank so quickly that she did not have time to take the key from the table. Then she saw a magic pie on the floor. As soon as Alice took a bite, she began to grow rapidly upward. The girl grew so much that she could not go through the cherished door again. Alice began to cry so much that soon a huge puddle formed near her. At that moment she noticed the White Rabbit. The girl called him, but he was in a hurry, and in fright dropped his gloves and fan. Alice picked them up and noticed how she began to shrink. The reason was a magic fan. Alice fell into a pool of her own tears. When she was thrown ashore, the girl again noticed the rabbit. He confused Alice with his maid, and ordered to immediately go home for new gloves and a fan. The girl ran to carry out the order. In the rabbit's house, she could not resist curiosity, and drank some liquid from a bottle. This led to the fact that Alice grew to gigantic proportions, and quickly filled the whole house. She was able to shrink only thanks to the pies. Having regained her previous dimensions, the girl ran away. Soon she saw a huge mushroom on which a large blue caterpillar was sitting. Alice complained to her about her constant changes in height. The caterpillar advised the girl to eat a piece of mushroom. Alice ate a small bite and finally returned to her normal height. And she went on. Suddenly, Alice saw a house. Going inside, the girl was in the kitchen, in which she saw the Duchess with a crying baby in her arms. A huge cat was sitting on the floor, smiling from ear to ear. The Duchess explained to Alice that he was smiling because it was a Cheshire cat. Suddenly the cat disappeared and the baby burst into tears. The Duchess gave the child to Alice, and she herself went to the Queen. The girl was surprised to find that she was not holding a child, but a real little pig. When the cat reappeared, he advised Alice to find the March Hare. And then he disappeared, and only his smile remained in the air. The girl hit the road. Soon she saw the house of the March Hare. Alice came just in time for the beginning of the tea party. The table was huge, but only the March Hare, the Mad Hatter and Sonia the Mouse were sitting at it. They would not let anyone sit at the table, and said that there was no room. Alice learned that they were forced to drink tea incessantly as punishment for killing time. The Hare and the Hatter mocked the girl in every possible way and ridiculed her. Unable to tolerate such rudeness, she silently got up and left. Soon Alice found herself in a wonderful garden. She noticed gardeners who looked like playing cards. They dyed white roses red. The girl was very surprised at this. She learned that their queen loved red roses, and only white ones grew. The queen executed her servants for the slightest offense. The gardener said she was judging the servant who stole the cookies right now. Alice was very interested, and she went to court. There she saw the March Hare and the Mad Hatter testifying. When they finished, the queen suddenly summoned Alice for questioning. The girl replied that she knew nothing, and ordered to let the servant go. The queen got angry and ordered to grab the girl. At that moment, Alice felt that she began to grow again. The girl realized that these were just cards, and she was not afraid of them. And at that very moment, the magic disappeared. Alice woke up in the same clearing where she first saw the white rabbit. There was a familiar landscape around, familiar sounds were heard. So it was only a dream, thought Alice.